So, like, there's utility involved in this, and it's not just the fact that, of course, any blockchain could do that, but this particular blockchain has been around for a minute. They built the rapport, they built the relationships. You know what I'm saying? They built the trust, so they were tapped to do it. So, you know, to me, I think that banks in the United States will be more likely to use that, especially because we're probably a couple of years from a central bank digital currency. Right, we're probably not going to see one for a minute. So this is hence why I'm saying they're going so hard for these regulations, because they don't want it to get too popular, too out of hand before people start abandoning banks that are already failing, because they don't really have the money anyway, because it's fractional reserve banking. So they don't have to have all the money. That's why SBV and all these other banks fail. Why? Because they don't really have all that money, and they use your money to invest in other things. The same way FTX failed. FTX isn't unique to how they operate. All centralized exchanges operate like that. All American banks operate like that. They just got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and then CZ did some punk shit and put them on blast, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? So it's all a game. But we have 8 billion people in this world, right? So no blockchain can really scale to be used by 8 billion people. Hence, we have several different blockchains, several different cryptos. 99% of them are garbage. Let's keep it a buck. Not that you can't make money off them, but 99% of them are garbage. But there's a handful of them that can be used, and people are going to select what makes more sense for what they're trying to do. So the potential for XRP is great, because we only have a 2% market penetration in crypto overall globally. Think about that.
All right, not 2%. But even with the use case of XRP or any of this, what is going to be the utility for the tokens? Is it going to use it for gas or what?
Well, yeah, of course. Of course it's going to be for gas, but also, of course, it's for gas, and they're going to underpin the actual transaction. You know what I mean? And then just convert it. So, yes, I'm going to send, this bank is going to send $2 billion over to whatever country overseas. Yeah, they're going to use XRP to transfer that value, then instantly convert it to that native currency, right? Now you don't lose the money from the sway of the value of the dollar with that 3 to 5 business day waiting period using the SWIFT system or the. And of course, XRP is the only viable source. You could use a Digibyte if you wanted to. You could use an XLM if you wanted to. You could use a Litecoin if you wanted to. But it's all about who has the development and the apps and the different things in place already, the tools already in place that connects to however that bank or industry or business or whatever wants to tap into. So really, there's going to be plenty of coins that are going to be used, in my opinion, in the next few years, that are going to be used, like really disrupting how we do things. It's not just going to be like just one.
I don't think it's going to be any. I doubt the coins are going to have much to do with that, except for use case for gas. But I think the coins is just more importantly the technology. Yeah, somebody going to use. They're going to use
facts. I agree with that.
Whatever, but the coins are probably barely going to have much to do with it. Like if a bank says we're going to use XRP today, I mean, you're going to have to. Yeah, XRP will pump. But it ain't going. I don't think that will be sustained just because the bank is going to use it. XRP going to pump along with the market. It's going to come back down to what the rest of the market is doing.
It's going to be all that. It's going to be all that.
I don't know how it can be, but
it can be, because the banks that want to use it, they're going to have to buy that coin in order to actually use it to transfer value. Not just for the gas, we're going to have to actually hold that coin, and then that's going to trigger other people that's going to have confidence in that coin. And then when it's moving, now you have volume, which is part of what makes coins pump. You have this much volume per day, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be all that. And it's going to end up stabilizing as more people get into it. You know what I'm saying? But, this is all speculation at the end of the day. I'm just kind of going by what kind of makes sense.
I get you. Nah, I mean, that's all we're doing is speculating. That's the bull case coming from you ain't got to be a maxi, but XRP holders that want to see it do well, obviously, right?
Yeah, and let's just say this: if it does get to the last all-time high or surpass, that's a pretty good pump from where it's at. So even if you dump it once it gets to $4, whatever, you're getting the money out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really take much profits out generally. You know what I'm saying? So either way, I'm fucking with it. Yada.
That part.
The big three. It's just big meat. Boom. Yep. All right. So unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know where that comes from. That reference comes from the Drake and Kendrick Lamar battle that you could not have missed unless you're literally under a rock. But that particular video that you just seen is from 2023, about 2.5 years ago. I was on a Twitter space with some good people, and we were talking about XRP. And at that time, XRP was worth about 47 cents, I want to say. As of now, it is at $3.09. I was making a bullish case for XRP of why I thought that XRP would indeed do well. And as we can see, it's about 6x from there, from that conversation, over 6x from there. And now we're looking at the big three in crypto, and that is what this particular story live stream is going to be about. The big three: Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. Then I also have a bonus at the end, another bonus nugget. It is an investment nugget, but it is not a crypto investment nugget. We'll get to that later. But as we look at the market right now, of course, the big three, number one, sitting at 2.3 trillion market cap at 117,000 per is Bitcoin. We have Ethereum under that at 4,600, 555 billion in the market cap. And then we have XRP back at number three with 185 billion market cap, sitting at $3.09 per, up 2.6% for the 7-day. We're looking pretty good in the crypto market. Like I said, you typically from the halving, you'll see Bitcoin's all-time high, typically about a year and a half, which would be about now if everything was normal, which is not. Plus, of course, these are just, it's kind of what we expect because of historical pattern. Doesn't mean that we might not see an all-time high for another 6 months. Who knows? But it does look like the market is doing okay. It's pretty secure. All the technical are there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into some stories that I just proofread. I didn't really read the whole things, but because we started with the XRP, we're going to start with the XRP. So let's go ahead and check out what they're saying about XRP. I know a lot of people, especially like when I'm out in public playing poker or whatever, and I start talking about crypto. Seems like XRP is maybe outside of Bitcoin, the number one holder. Like a lot of people are very bullish and very confident in XRP. Matter of fact, I was playing poker online a couple weeks ago, and one of the guys see my name on my poker avatar. Her name is CryptTalk, and I have a avatar picture of a Bitcoin, and he asked me what I thought about XRP. I said, I think it's going to do well. He asked if it's going to go to 2,000. I laughed because 2,000 is just crazy. Like, I don't even think there's enough market. I don't think there's enough money for it to go to 2,000, nor does it have to. But nevertheless, according to Cointelegraph, XRP price gearing up for a breakout. Why next target is $15. To me, that is reasonable. To me, it's reasonable to see a $10 to $15 XRP by the end of this bull cycle. I would welcome it. That would be $15 XRP would be about a 5x from where it's at right now. I'm all good with that. I think that is reasonable. I think it's possible. But as I always say, just because it's possible doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean that it has to happen if you've been accumulating XRP as long as I have been accumulating since it was at about 8 cents. So if you've been accumulated at least for the last 2 years, a $15 XRP is going to be a significant increase. And let's just go ahead and get into that story. We got XRP, man, just flying, trying to get there. Key takeaways: classic XRP price chart pattern puts $5 to $15 in play this cycle. So even at $5, you're still looking at about almost a double up from where it's at right now. XRP enters mainstream finance with Rex Osprey's XRP EFT launch. So as we have been seeing, especially from the big three, we've been seeing ETFs, meaning that now they're on the traditional markets, stock market, which, you know, it's a good and a bad, I guess, if you ask me, but we're not going to really focus on that too much. It just means that it's being mainstream. Not only that, as I've reported several times over the years, a lot of different central banks are tapping XRP for central bank digital currencies. You have other banks, especially in the Middle East, that are using XRP to, you know, make transactions, cross-border transactions. We've had Western Union and MoneyGram that at one point was using XRP. So like if you've ever used MoneyGram or Western Union, you know how it goes, right? You send money somewhere, they take a big chunk of it. You have to go to the store, wherever, you know, Western Union, MoneyGram market is at. You have to go to the store, show them ID or whatever, you get your money. But what they didn't tell you, at one point, they were using XRP. So they were literally using XRP to transfer that money instantly and for free, but then they would charge you like 20%. And this is how, this is why, like remittance for El Salvador being 25% of their economy. This is why Nayib Bukele said, hey, we're going to use Bitcoin and make it a legal tender. Because the idea was, if people who are living outside of El Salvador want to, let me make sure my volume. Okay. So if people outside of El Salvador, I just want to make sure. My bad. If people outside of El Salvador wanted to send money back, like let's say they're working in America, they're working in UK or something, they want to send money back home, and they're using Western Union or MoneyGram, they're going to take usually about 25 to 30%. So that means that's 25 to 30% in fees that could have went back to the economy of El Salvador. So by using Bitcoin, now you're sending that money back, and all that money is in play because it's legal tender, it can actually be spent without having to convert it to the native currency. So in other words, it would increase their GDP by 25%. That was the idea on a macro level, basically using the same principles that we use on a micro level, on a macro level. So, and this is what these banks are thinking as well. Like, oh, okay, if I'm a big corporation or a big bank and I got to send $1 billion overseas, yeah, if I use the traditional Swiss banking system, the legacy system, it's going to take 3 to 5 days and blah, blah, blah. There's going to be fees involved. And by the time it transfers, maybe the goods or services or even the money market at that point may have fluctuated to the point to where now the business deal isn't as lucrative. But if you could do it instantly for free using an XRP, and don't get it wrong, you can use more than just XRP. There's several different coins that are fast and cheap. The advantage XRP has is they have the infrastructure developed on their network, and they also have in Brad Garland House a spokesperson who can speak to these businesses as a salesperson, as a point of contact to make it a little bit more comfortable. So this is why, you know, XRP is really gearing up to kind of be the coin of choice when it comes to particular aspects of the economy. So XRP price technical analysis puts 5 to 15 in play. XRP price action has painted bull flag patterns on a weekly time frame that could result in a massive breakout to as high as $15. Now, listen, this is not a Moon Boy channel, so I'm not here to tell you that XRP is it's gonna make you rich. Everybody, I'm saying that these to me sound reasonable. So even if you bought XRP right now for $3.10. And it did get to $15, that's a 5x. You can't complain about that. You know what I mean? And even if it only got to 10, that's a 3x. Can't complain about that. I think it's very possible. I'm not saying that it's absolutely going to happen, right? This is all speculative. The first is a smaller one that formed in mid-June and was resolved earlier this week when the price broke above the flag's upper boundary at $3. Like I said, when I made that video that I just played for you, this was 2.5 years ago. XRP was only about 47 cents. So as you can see right here, I'm not a TA kind of guy. But if I was, I would be pretty impressed by this. As you can see, it was stagnant for, a good year and a half-ish. And then it just jumped. And then it stayed sideways, then it jumped. And now it's sideways. And they're saying that if it continues that type of a pattern, we're going to be looking at a hell of a rise from XRP. And I know all the XRP army, they got to be happy to see this. I know that they're probably one of the most engaging crypto clicks, if you will, in the game right now. And for good reason. So, and this is all despite the fact that Ripple was sued by the SEC, which I think kept the price down last bull cycle. But here we go. That's what it is. Let's go ahead and get to the next story. I'm going to do it in reverse order. Let's talk about Ethereum. Now, ETH is one of those. ETH, when I first got into the crypto space, I want to say I was 60-40 ETH Bitcoin, meaning I probably started off eyeing ETH more than Bitcoin because I liked what they were doing. I seen the technology and what they had going on. Development that they had, the DeFi was very impressive to me. The idea that you could do a collateral debt position or borrow against your assets in a decentralized way, not having to use any personal information, any KYC, and get any permission. You could do it at 3 a.m. And I actually utilized it. I actually have a video where I showed you how to use compound finance as a way to borrow against your assets. I like the idea. I like the concept of being able to do a decentralized CDP, because what that means is, you're borrowing against your assets. It's not a tax event, and your payback is on you. It's not like every month you have to pay this much. No, you just have to make sure you pay it back before the interest rate, which is usually about 3%, eats up the cushion of what you borrowed against. So that could be years. So as long as you pay it back before then, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about credit scores. You don't have to, which could be a bad thing. Maybe you want to be able to apply that to credit, but then again, maybe you wouldn't be able to do the CDP. But anyway, the point is, yeah, you could kind of do your own thing. So this is, to me, why they didn't really want that to kind of be mainstream, because now people can kind of make these moves on their own. And this is why now you're seeing, years later, Fannie Mac and Freddie Mae or whatever, housing being able to be purchased by using your crypto assets. This is why now you're seeing different platforms that are allowing you to borrow against your, matter of fact, Coinbase allows you now to borrow against your assets. So this is something that now is being centralized, but if you knew how to use some of these decentralized protocols, you could do it on your own. But anyway, I was big into Ethereum, even more so than now. Ethereum positioned to replace Wall Street infrastructure, yet remains undervalued by investors. See what they got to say. Investors have not priced in Ethereum's potential to replace Wall Street's outdated settlement infrastructure, according to SharpLink CEO Joseph Shalom, and Egan Layer, founder of Shreem Cannon. Now, here's another thing about this that's very interesting. Visa, MasterCard have been tapping XRP for transaction settlement as well. And they found it to be more efficient because it's blockchain based. And in fact, I believe Ethereum actually has more transaction settlements than MasterCard, Visa. So I'm just saying, like, even though I don't believe all this stuff is really ready to scale yet, that's why you need these second layers, these polygons, these stacks, these lightning networks, and et cetera, that you have to build on top of these networks in order to be able to make these transactions more fluent and seamless. But now that, the efficiency is undeniable, that's exactly what you're seeing happen. Current systems require day-long settlement periods, create counterparty risk, and force market participation to post collateral for overnight financing, while intermediaries exact rents from these inefficiencies. The current ecosystem is pretty inaccessible and filled with friction where intermediaries are taking rents. See, this is another reason why, like I said, it's a balancing act. It's a tricky balancing act, because on one hand, we're seeing this more efficient using these blockchain-based solutions, right? So they don't really, and I know this can sound like, tinfoil hat type talk, but and you hear it a lot from the crypto brothers, and we have for years, but it's true. Like, mainstreaming crypto and blockchain, especially years ago, would have been a conflict of interest to banks. What we've seen over the years is that banks are now starting to tap into and integrate it within their system and figure out how to create their own products and services and introduce crypto to, your standard traditional markets. That's what these EFTs and all that stuff is about. So now it's like, okay, now we don't have to hide Bitcoin as much, but we just have to push Bitcoin when it comes from either our centralized exchanges, Coinbase, or on Wall Street ETFs, right? Because if people were tapped in, and this is what they're doing as more people start to mainstream and adopt crypto, they're making sure that they, as I've said they would do years ago, they're making sure that they kind of herd these newcomers to these centralized products and services that have been created by corporations and banks that are approved by them. Because if everyone who's getting into crypto knew hey, you could do some of these things on your own. You don't have to use your own personal information. You don't have to get permission. You don't have to do it only between business hours. You could do this anytime you want on your own. It would kind of, there would be less use for the traditional market in regards to how you deal with your crypto and blockchain, right? So it's not really like a conspiracy theory. It's just real. It's not going to make sense. If I'm a bank, I don't want the idea of decentralized finance on a decentralized level to get out when I can mimic what they're doing and I can centralize it. It won't really be as beneficial, but it may be easier, right? The interface may be easier because, it looks all techie when you're trying to do it on a decentralized format. So that's what I'm saying. You want to learn how to do some of these trades and some of these maneuvers that you could do. You want to learn how to do it on your own so you don't have to rely on these centralized exchanges or other products and services that are introduced to you by corporations. That makes sense. Not that it's not going to still be beneficial. It will. And for some people, that might be the only way they want to go. I'm just saying you won't get as much benefit. You will have to provide your information. You will have to give them a cut. You will have to do it by their rules, which are going to typically be between business hours, whatever. As of now, you could do all that. If I wanted to borrow against my assets right now or at 3 a.m, I could be using that money within a few minutes. You can't do that when you're in the traditional market. But anyway, back to this programmable finance transformation. We're just going to hit these, kind of quick. Ethereum's programmable nature enables portfolio rebalancing through smart contracts, dividend distribution in minutes rather than days, and compassable transactions allowing any asset to trade against any other asset in real time. And that's another thing. The fact that they're ran on smart contracts, because what that means is there's no bias, right? That means if you do this, the smart contract is going to execute that command, no matter who you are, no matter what time it is, no matter how old you are, no matter what your race is, no matter what your religion is. They're not going to size you up we just don't really trust you with this transaction. Or if you just want to send crypto, because on a centralized exchange, believe it or not, they can block your exchange. They can block you from receiving crypto. If you're like, yo, send me 3 Ethereum to my Coinbase account, and you gave somebody your Coinbase Ethereum address, and that person that's sending to you is somehow red flagged because they're saying, oh, that's a drug dealer, or that's a terrorist, or that's just somebody who we don't like because they criticize Israel or Charlie Kirk or whatever. They could be like, nah, we're going to block that transaction. They could even be like, well, first you got to identify exactly who this person is. We need their ID, we need their address, we need the last light bill they paid, we need to know what school they went to, and you know what I'm saying? They can do that. So the idea is that when you learn how to do this stuff on your own, you bypass any of those things. So anyway, this is just another story showing you about the big three. We just showed you about XRP. Now we're showing you Ethereum. Ethereum, they're saying, could replace Wall Street infrastructure. So that means that everything we have been saying about crypto is true. Yeah, we may have been a little bit sensationalized with it years ago, but it's true. It is what it is. It's more efficient. It is the new system. Blockchain is a more efficient way to do transactions, to do ledger records, whether it's financial records, medical records, voting, whatever the case may be. Blockchain has been deemed as more efficient. This is what we're seeing. Let's move on. Moving on. Let us move on. Now let's get to the biggie. Let's get to the biggie. BTC. They're saying, forget the big three. It's just big me. Boom. Bitcoin has a 70% chance of hitting new all-time highs in 2 weeks. So they're saying within the next 2 weeks, there's a 70% chance it hits all-time high. So what does that mean? What if you don't have Bitcoin? What if you don't have Bitcoin because you know it's not going to 100x this bull cycle? And I'm just going to mess with my meme coins and my altcoins, my low market cap coins. Okay, that's cool. I'm not mad at that. Listen, I have not just BTC. I have the big three. But hey, I got some meme coins. I'm pretty heavy in a few of these meme coins. I got some base meme coins. I got some Solana meme coins. I got some Cardano meme coins. Absolutely. I'm in the game, baby. I'm looking for them 100 and 1,000 X's. Absolutely. But I know that's risk. I also have some lower market cap altcoins that aren't memes. And I also have some, standard other altcoins, the Tezos, the Polygons, the Stacks, the et cetera, et cetera. But when Bitcoin flourishes, the rest of the market comes with it, right? When Ethereum flourishes, it usually sparks a bull cycle for the altcoins. So you want to at least be tapped into these things, even no matter what you're holding, because as the market goes, as the last bull cycle went, pretty much everything made money last bull cycle. Let's be real. Now, whether you took your profits in time, that's a whole different discussion, but pretty much you couldn't go wrong. You almost can't go wrong during a bull cycle. It's just all about the timing. And to track the timing, you have to look at number one, numero uno, BTC. Let's go. Analysis see a 70% chance that Bitcoin hits fresh highs in 2 weeks. Now, of course, this is all speculative. We're not saying it's guaranteed. Spot ETF inflow and bullish future premiums reinforce the upside outlook. Internal liquidity near 114,000 to 113,000 could spark a brief pullback before the breakout, which is pretty typical. And I got to be honest, this is September, right? We're rounding up, coming to the last third of September, the last third of the year. I mean, third of the month, meaning, you break it up in 30 days. We're at the last leg almost. Typically, September is not a good month for crypto. It's usually sideways at best, but we've seen a pretty decent. We've seen September prices hold and even increase. I think that is a very bullish indicator right there. So Bitcoin currently at 117,000 is setting the stage for a potential rally, with analysis pointing to a 70% probability that the cryptocurrency could push forward towards fresh all-time highs within the next 2 weeks. According to a Bitcoin researcher, Axel Adler Jr., market conditions are currently balanced and prime for a move higher. They're saying we're getting higher. They're saying that we are now fueling the rocket with sights on the moon. That's what they're saying. I agree. I hope they're right. And I just don't see anything that would make me think otherwise, to be honest with you, because we're at the time where the market is supposed to be, according to historical patterns, it's supposed to be flourishing. And it looks like we're gearing up for that. And like I said, as Bitcoin goes, I still I still accumulate Bitcoin. Probably the highest rate of my accumulation is still Bitcoin to this day. Like I literally have a good portion of my income that is automatically converted to Bitcoin, because not because I plan on selling Bitcoin, not because I think it's going to 10 and 20x, because I want to hold Bitcoin for the long run, because I know out of all the cryptos, Bitcoin is probably one of them that's going to be the best store of value that you could still borrow against, and that you could even still hand down as, generational wealth, right? Pass down the keys to your kids. And at one point, I believe Bitcoin is probably going to get to that $250,000. May not be in my lifetime, might be 10, 20 years from now. Who knows? But, I think that's the more steady one, because that's Bitcoin is, the one that, like most of these large corporations that's going to put crypto on their balance sheets, they're not just going to put anything on their balance sheets, man. They're not going to put that meme coin on your balance sheets. Shiba Inu's not going on your balance sheets. Dogecoin's not going on anybody's balance sheets. It's going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum mostly. So as a store of value, as a digital gold, and I also do invest in gold, Bitcoin is that long, and not only that, it's just so scarce. It's so scarce. Even if you only had half a Bitcoin, right, within the next 10 years, that's going to mean something, because Bitcoin is being taken off the market so rapidly. It's being concentrated into billionaires and corporations' hands. So those of us retailers who have been stacking this Bitcoin, we're going to probably do okay in the future. But here we go. Alder Jr.'s highlights that the short-term holder Z-scores for both 155 days and 365-day charts are hovering near zero, indicating that the market is neither overheated nor oversold, with BTC trading just above the something realized price, the STH short. I don't know what that is. Realized price. The setup suggests a 1 to 2 week consolidation phase could precede a breakout. October incoming, meaning next month, October. They're saying that it's about to hit a new all-time high, which would be what, about 120-ish? What was the last all-time high? I can't remember, man. It's hard to keep up. But I would say about 120th. So I've said that, if Bitcoin gets to 150 for this bull cycle, that would be pretty incredible. That would be okay with me, because when I was saying that, Bitcoin was only about 40,000. I said, yeah, it'll probably get to 150. I understand why people are saying 250. I understand why people are saying 400,000. Like, if you really do the math between where Bitcoin was during the last halving and the last halving and where it went to the all-time high after that, I understand why people are saying 250 to 400,000. I'm just not dependent on that, because I understand now the market cap's higher. So it may be harder to get there. But at the same time, we didn't have ETFs last bull cycle, right? We didn't have as much adoption. We didn't have a whole country that's saying we're going to legalize it. We didn't have a lot of the different things that we have now going on. So there it is. But even if it goes to 150, what that means is the rest of the market is about to explode as well. So nothing wrong with that. So as I promised, and like I said, look, man, you want to have a balanced portfolio. You want to know how to deal with these decentralized protocols on your own. You want to be tapped into the news, right? You want to know what type of partnerships are being made, acquisitions are being made, what kind of developments are happening. You want to know all these things so you'll make better decisions. I don't tell you what to buy. I just tell you to pay attention to what's going on. A lot of this news is not mainstream for a reason. There's a reason why this ain't mainstream like it should be. There's a reason why you have to tap into the blockchain crypto gangs and others that are letting you know what's going on in the market, because you're not going to hear it from the mainstream, because it wouldn't make sense for them to let you know it in the mainstream. So anyway, let's get to the last story. This is the bonus story. Marijuana. Ohio marijuana sales top 3 billion. 3 billion. Let's go ahead and check it out. Ohio medical and adult use marijuana sales. Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to sign up just so you get out my face, dog. Now, Ohio medical and adult use marijuana. Okay, that's enough. Good. Anyway, Ohio medical and adult use marijuana sales have officially surpassed 3 billion, new data from the State Department of Commerce shows. So when I see stuff like this, right, I wonder why some of these other states aren't making recreational and medical marijuana available to their people. Now, I get it on a state by state basis. Maybe the majority of that state votes against it. And I guess that's just how it is. But look at the revenue that it's creating and has created since legalization, right? Another conversation that's been going around has been based on the rescheduling of marijuana and the federal legalization of marijuana. And if one or two of those things happen, I believe marijuana stocks are going to explode. More on that later. An update published on Tuesday, DOC's Division of Cannabis Control reported $3 billion in cannabis purchases as of September 13th. That includes about $2.2 billion worth of medical marijuana, which was legalized in 2019, and $800 million in recreational sales, which launched in August of last year. That's almost $1 billion right there in a year. So this is helping economies, right? So according to the DCC, 458,292 pounds of plant material and nearly 44.4 million manufactured product units have been sold since the medical market launched across almost 40 million receipts. So we're seeing that marijuana is starting to make money on a retail level and on a medical level, which brings me to something I'm going to show you guys, because I have been invested in a few different marijuana stocks in my 401k and just in one of my personal portfolios. And I have been seeing them they were sideways and slowly losing for years. All of a sudden they started exploding. And I believe it has to do with the fact that, yes, there are conversations about reclassifying marijuana to a Schedule 1 or whatever, and legalizing cannabis on a federal level. And this is a video I made on TikTok about a month ago. All right, check it out. So you can see with this particular marijuana stock, and I'm not trying to show you on anything. I'm just letting you know, like, this is where the market is going. Like, according to that story I just showed you, according to what's going on in talks with the politicians about legalizing it on a federal level and or rescheduling marijuana so it's not as demonized as they currently have it. They have marijuana classified the same as heroin, by the way. That's ridiculous. But as you can see here, at the point that I made this video, this particular stock was up 130% since I started purchasing it. My average cost per share was 51 cents. Current price was at $1.17 at the time of this video. I believe it's around the same or higher now. And I have a lot of these stocks, for the record. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, Dizzle. I meant DraftKings. The reason why I made that video, not just to show you what the marijuana stocks are doing, but just for people who are timid to get into investing or, are new to investing. What I would say, even outside of crypto, invest in things you already use. Like I said, Netflix. Okay. Netflix is a winning strategy because you use it. You have it as a subscription. Why not invest in it? You're on Facebook a lot. Why not invest in Meta? I have the Meta glasses. Why wouldn't I invest in Meta? It's one of my biggest holds in one of my portfolios. So things that you use on a daily basis, you should be comfortable enough in their business strategy because you patronize them that would be a good place to start. And you start with an amount that you're comfortable with. But once you do that, so you'll be more in tune with what's going on. You might pay more attention with news that goes on. Like, for instance, Facebook, you know how many ads they have these days? Well, those ads are revenue. That's them getting paid because so many people use Facebook that advertisers will pay Meta to advertise because they know they have 1 billion people on Meta. So, in that, meaning that that's revenue that they're creating. You're not getting revenue unless you're like a professional. Unless you have a professional account and you're getting paid for engagements, which is cool. But even so or not, that all these advertising is making Meta money, meaning that they have, a process to generate profits. Why wouldn't you want to invest in that and make some money as well? You know what I mean? So that's just the easy way to kind of get your feet wet in investing if you're not already savvy in investing. That's kind of like what I would do personally. And then from there, if you stay up on the news, that's the most important thing. You want to be current and understand what's going on, especially things that's not mainstream. So you want to maybe some investment magazines. You might want to read some articles. You might want to subscribe to different topics on your Google. You may want to peep places like Blockchain Crypto Gang and get the news that's going on, not the moon boy stuff, not the people that's shilling you that this meme coin is gonna 1000x. I'm not saying don't take chances with some of these meme coins. I'm not saying don't take chances with some of these low market cap stocks and or crypto. I'm saying understand the technology, understand the stories that represent, partnerships and developments on these networks. And then from there, you can make better decisions. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, it's Blockchain Crypto Gang. I appreciate y'all for listening. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you like, you comment, ask your questions. You can hit me up at mycryptoslang@gmail.com. I appreciate your time, y'all. Peace.